This double bind, paradoxical command expresses whose will or desire. It is not enough that my neighbor tells me, I desire that you not desire my woman. JHWH, according to the Bible, the other, must articulate in such a way his desire that you not desire the women of others. For Lacan, we can call ourselves atheists all we want, but unconsciously we are all believers, because our desire, if always impregnated by these others, the desire called law. Our problem will always be to extricate what each of us really desires from what the other desires. What do I really want is the crucial question which torments us and sometimes leads us to a psychoanalyst. Given that the law thus expresses the desire of the other, law is the origin of our desires. In other words, for Lacan, the structure of the desire is intrinsically perverse. Every subjective desire is articulated as a transgression of the other's desire, which has the sense of the law. The perverse individual, precisely because he needs the law to enjoy, is the paradigm itself of the desiring subject in general, insofar as every subject needs the law in, and I don't have any more pages. What's the last sentence? The last? The law needs the law in order to be able to desire and eventually enjoy.
Thank you very much. If I understand things well, we have 15 minutes for questions and discussion. Mm-hmm.
15 minutes.
15. So, who starts? Who has a question? Andreas?
I have a very, very basic question.
Maybe
is one of your first slides, and you can go back to your presentation. The slide where it was on the kind of knowledge that you deny and the kind of knowledge that you need for pleasure.
Thank you. Yeah, that one.
Okay.
That one. I just wanted to ask, you can conceive of different kinds of sexual behavior that seem to violate a norm or a law. And outside these prototypical perversions, like for instance adultery, homosexuality, rape, masturbation. My question is, why aren't these on this slide? So why is adultery, homosexuality, masturbation and rape, why aren't they on this slide? Because, for instance, you could say that, what? Well, yeah, but the knowledge necessary for pleasure, for adultery, you could say, well, that actually what is this about is the need, or what he denies is that his real wife is at home. What he denies is that his real wife, his actual wife, is at home, and the knowledge necessary for pleasure is something like this woman fulfills all my needs or all my pleasures. So it's possible to construct for each of these well, norm-violating sexual behaviors like masturbation, rape, homosexuality, etc., adultery, pretty similar lines of reasoning, in which make them look like perversions. So the issue is, why aren't those norm-violating sexual behaviors or sexual desires, why aren't they perversions? So it's a very basic question.
Yes, your question is very, sharp in the sense that, when we assume a concept like a perversion or a paraphilia, we have always to think, it's an assumed concept by the major or ordinary psychiatry or psychoanalysis, because in certain sense I don't think that there's a real split between psychoanalysis and the DSM-4, in the sense when psychoanalysts, Freudian psychoanalysts talk about perversion, they essentially agree the DSM. It's strange because sometimes there is a clash between modern psychiatry, many times, or modern psychiatry and psychoanalysis, because they don't see problems in the same way. They don't have the same format, the same paradigms. But in the case of perversion, I was talking about the fact that psychoanalysts, average psychoanalysts and psychiatrists agree. It means that they share a common look at the modern look to this kind of strange sexual behaviors. And the point is what? It's I think that when I started my study on perversion, I started from what in philosophy is called charity principle. You have charity principle is it means that when somebody is talking about something which seems strange and absurd, or not very coherent, consistent, you have to make an effort, a strength, in order to understand where is the coherence of what the other is saying. It's true for politics. For example, often we are struck by inconsistencies of our foes in politics, and why they think these very contradictory things. But our effort, at least if we are philosophers or psychoanalysts, I don't know, but it's to try to understand what is consistent. And my major concern was the way both psychoanalysts and psychiatrists now classify perversion. Has a consistency, has a logic, or it's something just, it's an incoherent, heterodoxical bunch of, and what's the link with the social and historical prejudices which leads certain epochs, certain times to consider some sexual behavior as correct or incorrect, bad or evil, and I don't know if I was right, but I had the feeling that our modern way to look at the perversions, as are both described by psychoanalysts and the psychiatrists, has a kind of consistency, which we can refuse or not, and which excludes homosexuality, not rape, because rape is on the side of sadism. Of course, rape in a certain way is considered, of course, perversion by.
Not in the DSM.
What?
Not in the DSM.
It's true, but but sadism, but in a certain way, yes, rape is a little bit ambiguous. But as a psychoanalyst, I worked on rapes, and my impression was very often that rape is a kind, as I wrote also in my book, that rape is a kind of political challenge to women, because of course rape is masculine, and the idea that in a certain way by a rape, it's also shown by certain American movies, the idea that the rapist is not somebody who is pushed by a certain sexual urge. He has to have sex with the woman, but it's a challenge, it's punishment of the woman. And talking, reading a lot of trials about rapists, it's inside the sadism, the idea that in a certain way the rapist punishes the woman for being a woman first, and for being a woman who refuses his desire. Now, I think that rape can be a certain amount of rapes. Of course, there are the differences, because rape is a criminal term, it's not a psychiatric term. But if we consider it from a psychoanalytic point of view, the typical rapist, a certain typical rapist, is in a certain way a political claim. I rape you, woman, because you are a woman and you have to be punished. You don't have the free will of choosing your man. I think that it's basically a lot of trials I read. Rape, in this sense, has the moral frame of the sadism, because what is striking that sadism is always very moral. Like in Holocaust, what's more moral than the sadist Holocaust? You have to torture and destroy the enemies, the Jews, the slaves, because it's a moral task. I think that we don't have to figure that the rape it's just a sexual urge. In this sense, it's perversion, rape. We don't consider anymore homosexuality perversion. Even Freud didn't consider homosexuality as a perversion. He thought that it was an aberration of sexuality. Both perversion and homosexuality were aberration of sexuality, but the homosexuality was completely different from perversion, and it didn't give a real explanation of this difference. Masturbation and adultery. Why modern psychoanalysis and psychiatry don't consider them as perversion? For a very simple reason, that in a certain way, perversion it's a relationship with the other, and masturbation excludes the other. Perversion. What is the real stigma of a perversion? It's the fact that you use the other's desire. As in masturbation, of course, you can fantasize a lot of things, but it's not something the others is absent. And in adultery, I would say that if a man, husband, enjoys to say to his wife, or vice versa, or wife enjoys to say to her husband, I cheated you yesterday and I had a good enjoyment, it's perverse. The act, if my way of looking at perversion is right, that the matter is to make use of the other's subjectivity in order to enjoy in a selfish way. I can enjoy to tell to my husband, I cheated you yesterday, but because I need his sufferance. The fact in itself of a masturbate, of having sex with another person, it's not perversion, because what matters in perversion is the other's subjectivity. It was even some very smart psychoanalysts like Stoller and others who wrote nice things about perversion didn't grasp. Their conclusion was that perversion is essentially, in our language, the fact that in sexuality you can use the other as an object.